Welcome to Your Pharmacy Career Podcast, proudly produced by Ravens Recruitment, the experts in pharmacy career and locum services for over 30 years. Every episode is your gateway to new opportunities in the pharmacy profession. From expert advice to inspiring success stories, we're here to spark ideas, guide your career, and help you achieve your goals. Stay tuned. The next step in your pharmacy journey starts here.
Hi everyone and welcome to Your Pharmacy Career Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Lee Patterson, and joining me on the show today is Susan Nguyen, a community pharmacist and co-owner of Carmen Drive Community Pharmacy and the founder of ADHD Support Pharmacist. Susan is passionate about making healthcare more accessible, particularly in the areas of travel health and ADHD care. And she's also a very strong advocate for collaboration within the healthcare sector. Susan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Christy Lee, for having me and talking all about pharmacy, which I'm very passionate about, and yourself as well.
Oh, thank you. Well, I can already hear the passion coming through your voice, so I'm very excited to have you on the show today. We'll jump straight into the questions. And the first question I ask everyone is, what made you get into pharmacy? But I know that your career, pharmacy wasn't actually your first career choice. So what is your story?
So when I was in high school, with my parents, I said, as long as you do well, you can just pick whatever you like. And at that time, I had no idea. I just knew I just had to just do something that was quite general. So when I got my results and HSC and all that sort of stuff came out, I could only think of business. That's all I could think of, commerce, and pharmacy was my fifth choice. It was just down the line. And the reason why I put pharmacy down was mum and dad had family friends who said it's amazing for, women. It allows them to work with flexibility and it's quite rewarding in terms of helping people. So I just put that down, not really thinking too much about it. And then during, I think, the third rounds of university choice, I went for an accounting interview for apprentice of some sort. And then when I sat there in the interview, I just felt it was so suffocating. I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to be dealing with paperwork, numbers, four walls. I can't be in here. And so the interview went from really enthusiastic to just, they never called me back. So I don't blame them because I went from energetic to just not interested at all. And then I got into pharmacy. So picked that choice and got in first year. Yep, all done. But as I got through it, with third and fourth year, I felt really connected with it, and also working in second year as an assistant. And I realized that I really enjoyed the connection. I enjoyed helping people. I was interested in health as well, because one thing was I've always been curious of how, I guess when, I had asthma and my sister did too, and then all those sort of things, I was already in medicine anyway, taking those Ventolins and that sort of stuff. So it just made me really curious, but it was the connection piece. So I noticed that, when I was working in pharmacy as a student, it was like a lasting conversation you would have with people, and then you would see different people. So I wasn't exposed to that many people, but I realized I felt very comfortable. And then that's also happy that I did choose pharmacy and walk out of that interview, without regretting it at all.
That's exactly right. And I think you mentioned that you were working as a pharmacy assistant as a student, and that's something that I did as well. I actually was working in a pharmacy before I got into pharmacy school, but I definitely think that that's very helpful. So if there is any students that are listening to this podcast now and maybe you don't have a casual job in pharmacy, I definitely would recommend it because I know for me it certainly did help just give you a bit of an understanding of what it will be like. Was it the same for you?
Yes, it was. And I think you're absolutely right there, Christy Lee, because sometimes it's not, you don't get the real life experience, and what the role plays that you do in pharmacy practice, it's not always textbook perfect. That's how you think. But then when you actually meet people, you see them as a whole person, and then you could start to realize what kind of pharmacist do you want to be? What kind of role as a pharmacist do I want to deliver? So being there from the very beginning, I think it solidifies your choice. So it's a definitely must do if you're in pharmacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you mentioned that your first choice was more like business and accounting and finance.
Yeah.
So I guess, is that kind of where the passion between the community pharmacy but then moving into pharmacy ownership, that's kind of bringing that business side into things. Yeah, how did that progress in your career?
Well, I worked as an employee, I worked in pharmacy for almost 10 years as a pharmacist. But then I realized there were like things I'd love to change, ideas I would like to implement. And, not being your own pharmacy, you can't always implement those changes.
Yeah, that's
And you
correct.
have a vision. And then having that vision, you sort of go, oh, I don't know when this is going to come to life. So that's when, I started looking into pharmacy and, buying one, and then obviously got in with my business partner, which was great because we have the same vision as well. And that's how it came about. But in terms of the business side, funny, I'm glad I didn't do it, become an accountant, because I realized that I'm not that great at numbers.
Oh no, oh my gosh.
Even though I did well in maths in high school, I like numbers. I like to see the end result of the numbers, the metrics, and I want to see the results and how we can interpret that. But I don't want to be able to generate it myself. So I'd rather someone else to do it, and then I look at it as a whole. So that's quite interesting. But the whole business ownership is just that vision part and wanting to make a difference.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So once you purchased this pharmacy and you went into partnership with your business partner, I guess that's when you were able to start making these changes that you said that you wanted to do when you were working in pharmacy. And one of the things that you did was you actually, I guess, created Travel Healthy. And so I'd love to understand that a little bit more as to, what actually is that? What does that mean from a pharmacy perspective? And then what also inspired you to focus on travel health in the first place?
Yeah, so we're located in Carlingford and we have a lot of semi-retiree patients and customers. And we noticed that, we just kept on getting postcards and postcards and postcards. And then, every time someone would come in, we'd be getting Reg 24, scripts back then, Reg 24. And we would, always just, continually be being asked for advice. And when we thought, there's something there about it, because we're giving all this advice, and travel is a really, happy topic, but it also comes with the health aspect as well. So we thought, why don't we just really structure this? And then we decided to have a section in the pharmacy. We started small, just having, travel health section. We started with having, just looking at mini consultations or ad hoc ones, but not structured at all. But we thought people are really gravitating towards this advice. So we thought, well, why don't we just create a consultation business out of it called Travel Healthy? And so that was the making of it. So it sort of just evolved over time.
And how long ago was this that you actually started this?
So the works of it the idea was about 2017, and then 2019 was when we thought, okay, we'll hit it hard on the head, and then COVID hit.
Oh no, oh my gosh.
It was like the worst timing because, you have this, it was so disappointing at the time because we thought, now we've got to focus on something else. We really have something solid here. And not just that, we actually have a niche that we want to focus on that is going to benefit our area as well. When COVID hit, we were quite gutted, but then we, after, you sort of put your head in the sand for a little bit, and we thought, you know what, this is great. We can pivot. This is allowing us space to plan a little bit more, and maybe it is a sign so we can really work on our branding. We could really work on how we want to deliver, work on our SOPs a little bit more, those sorts of things, build a website. So that's where we're at. So we've got a website and the business is called Travel Healthy. So that allows us to deliver consultations for people that are not within where our pharmacy is. So we could do it via Zoom. Also work with other travel businesses. So we did we attended a cruise travel expo as kind of a local one and collaborated with some cruise ship travel agents, and it's been pretty good. So that's sort of where we're at the moment, and that's the making of Travel Healthy. So that's that. And then we've been able to, I guess, deliver it in the pharmacy as well.
That's really insightful, where you noticed that there was already a pattern of behaviour in your pharmacy first, and it's grown from something small from, just making sure you've got a robust travel, I guess, category in your pharmacy and then building a service around that, I think is really, quite business savvy, really. It's like the demand is already there. You don't have to convince people that this is a good thing because they're already coming in for that information. But I guess you mentioned that you planned all of this and you had everything ready to go and then COVID hit and you talked about pivoting the business. Was there anything that you then did with your pharmacy to kind of engage the community in that time?
In that space, we sort of left the travel sort of planning in the background, mostly focused on how to deliver services effectively to the community, during COVID. So in terms of travel health, we knew that the moment, I guess, the borders open, people would be talking about travel and people would say, oh, I booked all this and I had to cancel it. We've had to, move it to the next year. And people were talking about, I wish I could travel. So we knew as soon as that would happen, we would be ready to go. So that was that. But in that time, in that space, we really focused on what every pharmacy focused on, which was delivering like COVID type services. So the vaccinations, and, working with other healthcare professionals in the area on raising awareness of COVID testing and COVID in general and the vaccinations. And I guess being there for the community, because I think what we did during COVID was shut our doors for, I'd say it would be at least 6 months, which was a big risk, but we served in the front. And it sounds very just a bad move, I guess, like a poor business decision, but we actually grew during that time, like not allowing people in and creating restrictions ourselves, which I think is quite polarizing. But I think a lot of people who were fearing COVID at the time and they couldn't leave that area, they really gained a lot of trust because we still continued to connect with them. Even though, we weren't able to be there for them, we were there on the phone, we were there out in the front. So that was our focus.
Yeah, but I like the fact that you didn't completely abandon the plan for your travel health business because, as you said, people were so desperate for wanting the borders to open again and start traveling. So you were very future focused on that as well. So yes, okay, you might have to pivot and change some of your day-to-day kind of priorities, but you were still working on that, in the background.
We were, and I think with travel health, it's a happy topic as well. And I think in pharmacy, and it's great that we are focused at, solving problems, but we can solve problems in another angle where something joyous, but we can also deliver, make it even more joyous for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Because when people are coming into the pharmacy, it's generally because there's something wrong with them. They're sick, they're not feeling great. But travel health is really about preventative health. So you really have that opportunity to get them thinking about, what choices they're going to make when they're on holidays. And I don't know if you're like me, but I don't know, when I'm on holidays, it's like I'm a different person. And you start like eating different things, doing different things, doing things that we wouldn't normally do and in places that you wouldn't normally be. So it's good to be that, I guess, point of reference for people to be like, hey, don't forget about your health as well when you're on holidays.
It is. It's so true. And then the thing is that they've spent all this money and then the worst thing you want to do is just stay in the hotel. And this is from personal experience, just throwing up and just befriending the bathroom. So that's one thing you don't want to do. And I think we were lucky in a way to, I guess beta test, how this travel health consultation was going to be like or whether there was a demand for it. Because I think, it's not a service for everybody. If you're generally healthy and you don't really care about medication or being healthy and you're a risk taker and all that sort of stuff. And, you don't need that support. But if you have diabetes, you have immunocompromised conditions, those sorts of things, you need to really have a pharmacist and a healthcare team to personalise your experience to prevent you from getting sick and having that plan for themselves on what to do if they do get sick. So that's really critical.
Yeah, that's a good point. A plan for if they do get sick. That's really actually important because it's not just about this is how you prevent it, but sometimes things happen and what do you actually do? That's a really good point. Now, I wanted to chat to you about your work in the ADHD space. It's pretty popular at the moment, this topic, because there's, I guess, a lot of out of stocks with some medications now in the pharmacy.
Devastating, isn't it?
Oh, which is very frustrating. But I guess from my perspective, I'd love to understand like why that was something that you were drawn to, because I guess from comparing it to the travel health side, you saw a need in your community and in the pharmacy and built something around that. Was that the same case for your interest in ADHD?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, it was a bit of both. So firstly, I have close, loved ones and close ones that were diagnosed with ADHD and other neurodivergent, I guess, conditions and those sort of things. And I just didn't know anything about it. I really didn't. And questions about the medications, about stimulants, about non-stimulants, I really just knew what AMH knew. I was just just saying it all just from there. And I thought, geez, I really am out of this space. So I thought in order to help, the people around me, I really need to know how we can help them, support them, because there was nothing there. They weren't getting help from just their GPs. The pediatricians are great, but you only have a time limit. And then in terms of accessing psychologists, OTs, all that sort of stuff, they had to find this all themselves. And then fortunately, we're living in this space where we have Facebook groups and all that stuff. But going back, quite a few years, we didn't have that luxury. So that's where the seed was planted. And then I started to notice how our safe was we were just needing more space.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so true.
Yes, we'll just go, okay, it's not, your other S8 medications, they were simply ADHD medications. And every time I handed out a medication or an ADHD medication, especially during initiation, I felt that there was some disparity between all the other medical conditions. So if it was someone who had just started antihypertensives or insulin, all that sort of stuff, I would spend a considerable amount of time going through just the medical condition itself, the expectations and the medications, the lot. But then with someone with ADHD, especially when it's scary starting on stimulants for a child, for a parent to have so many concerns and that, I just didn't have anything to offer them. So that's when I thought there is a gap in this space. And if anything, it's a condition that has a lot of stigma. There's also not much known about it. I think we only got a lecture or something about stimulants during uni. I don't think there was much.
Yeah, I vaguely remember like maybe one or two slides. Maybe I was completely wrong, and maybe I was not at that lesson or something because it was compulsory. But yeah, I remember, not really still having like that, I guess, that stigma around that it is still something that is in kids and they probably just grow out of it. And maybe if they just had some routine, they'll get better. Like I'm quite comfortable now to say that I had that bias, which is really sad from like a pharmacist perspective, that I had that kind of unconscious bias at the time. Like I didn't even realize that I had that thought in my head.
Yeah, and I really don't blame. It's the way society has built us, to shape that view for us. And even with stimulants, just thinking, oh, it's in the S8, so, it's an S8, it's controlled, fair enough. But there's so much stigma around it. We're thinking that they're habit-forming medication. When we hand it out, it's met with suspicion, those sort of things. And that's very demoralizing because, I mean, now that I know so much more about ADHD, people with ADHD try so hard, and the last thing they need is that judgment from a healthcare professional that is meant to be there for them. So, and I think that is still around because sadly, I was the same too. I had no idea about ADHD medications. And to me, I just thought it was just another regulated medication. I didn't put any weight on it at all. And that's why I think now the education piece is important. The advocacy is important, as well as just being able to be comfortable with seeing it as a condition that we can support patients, not something that we sort of steer away from, and treat it the same way that we should with diabetes, heart conditions, thyroid, the whole lot.
Pharmacy Daily is a proud supporter of your pharmacy career podcast. If you're in the pharmacy world, it's a great resource to stay up to date with the latest industry news. To subscribe, just head to pharmacydaily.com.au to get the newsletter delivered straight to your inbox.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I'm curious to know if once you started going down this path of understanding it more and being able to provide better advice to your patients and then also the people around you, But I'm also really interested into how businesses, and you're a business owner yourself, so like how do you actually support maybe some of your staff that maybe are neurodivergent, or maybe they don't know that they're neurodivergent?
That's true. That's so
I'm
true.
not saying that you want to be diagnosing people, but
No. Well, I must hope.
just making the environment of the pharmacy a little bit easier for them to be able to be their best at work.
Yes.
And I know for myself, when I'm working in community pharmacy, it's so distracting. There's so many different sounds, lights, so much going on, and it's so easy to make a mistake in that setting. So, yeah, I'd love to know, what changes do you think some of the pharmacies need to make to better support not just their patients, but also their staff as well?
Yeah. No, thanks for asking this, because I think this is an important message for not just business owners, but also for pharmacists themselves. And especially if you feel that you don't have to be like every pharmacist that's praised, or whichever it is, that they're praised because they can dispense perfectly, or they're praised because they can put stock away in great order and that sort of stuff. I feel that to create, whether they're neurodivergent or not, I think tapping into the strengths is most important. And definitely if you're neurodivergent, being a business owner, you need to know because they'll need more support. And often people who are neurodivergent, if you give them the support and create the right environment for them, they will thrive. They are going to be superstars and world-class at what they are, because that's their hyper-focus, and that's what we need to do. So that's something that I'm really going to focus this year with my business partner, where we're going to look at everyone's strengths and also just areas of, I wouldn't say development, it would be more areas to manage, because you need to run a business. And also, everyone needs to fulfill certain duties and be, accountable, responsible for things. But I think we need to focus more on what an individual or our team members can do rather than what they can't do. And provided that they continue to still, lead every day in whatever task we give them that they really connect with, as long as they lead with the same vision and the same values, that's all it is. So as a pharmacist, for example, someone can, we've used this example before, can check Webster packs on the fly, and I can't do that. I need a space and I need to do that. But, I can talk with patients and spend quality time with them and just dig and connect with them. Or we can have pharmacists that prefer not to speak to people and stay on the floor because it's quite exhausting. They're better at checking just interns, interactions, and give them pointers and give them guidance, all those sort of things. And also just look at compliances, making sure that our orders are right, or whether, owing scripts have been filled or fixed up, those sorts of things, or noting interactions, all those things that all pharmacists do. But we could really focus on each of everyone's role and individualize them, because I think that's the way to bring the best out of people. Because if you're put in a role where it's not suited for you, doesn't matter what it is, you're not going to thrive. In fact, you're not going to want to be there. You're not going to even want to, even if you wanted to succeed, you wouldn't be able to be part of the team in the whole way. So I think it's a really good thing that we recognize everyone's skill sets and capabilities rather than their limitations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you're right. It's not just neurodivergent staff, but just all staff in general. And I really like that you're making that a focus this year for your team. And because the thing is, you can't focus on everything all the time. But I think making sure you've got an opportunity to be able to, find out what the strengths of your staff are, because sometimes, let's be honest, it's very busy, especially in a community pharmacy, and you might not get time to even find out what they're good at, because you're not allocating that time or space for that. And maybe that person was just in that role because that's the role they had when you got there, or maybe took over the pharmacy. And I always think back to a pharmacy where I worked at, and one of the pharmacists, she was very good at checking Webster packs, very detail orientated. Whereas me, I loved being out on the floor. Like, I hate being in the dispensary, to be honest.
I feel the same way. I love just being able to connect with people. And I know that you do too.
And it's funny, like in the beginning, we were trying really hard to get her to be out on the floor and develop those skills. And yes, that's important. And then I would then be doing the website checking and dispense checking. And we both end up just making mistakes because I just couldn't, focus properly, and I get so bored. Like, how many tablets can I count? Like, oh my gosh. Whereas this particular pharmacist, like, you could ask her a question about any of the nursing home patients, what medications they were on, and she would be able to tell you. And then, like, now I reflect back on it, I think, while we were trying to force someone to do something that they don't want to do, like, yes, okay, you need to be able to do it. It's not like I'm just going to put my foot down and no, I'm not checking, or no, I'm not going out the front. Because you understand that that's part of your role. But why does it have to be the core focus? Like, and then once we just were like, do you know what? If you love being in the Webster room and doing all that, why don't you do that then and I'll do this? And it ended up working really well. We were both really happy. And then you're not forcing people to do things that, maybe they don't want to do, which sometimes you have to. But it's playing to those strengths. Yeah, playing to those strengths.
And it's true. Like, you just gave a great example there, because see how you both have preferences? If you work together, how good of a team would you be? Like, you can't have two Christy Lees just in the same shift because you both don't want to do the web. If you both...
Oh my gosh, imagine. Nothing would get done.
Well, it'd just be... And customers would love it, but then, all the Webster packing and all the nursing homes, like, there's still those part of the day-to-day workplaces. And, if everyone focused on their own roles... That would be fantastic. If they had like two Susans on the one day the whole time, we would be able to churn out, connect and do a lot of med checks and all that sort of stuff. We still need to get all the other things done, like day-to-day ordering and checking, what's left at the end of the day in terms of do we need to order some more Webster material? Do we need to, check on... I'm trying to think of end of the day stuff that I'm doing. Do we need to check up on QCPP? When is that? And all the day-to-day stuff that we would manage with, and calling up doctors that we have to chase up scripts with. If we didn't all have our preferences and we weren't grouped together, I think that would not be a workplace that I would personally want to be. And I want to create a workplace where everyone can feel comfortable, safe, and really just deliver services that they're comfortable with. Because if you can do that, you can really help the rest of the community. You could really help people in health as well, because if you don't like what you're doing, you're not going to be able to help your patients. That's
exactly right. Yeah. And they can sense that. It's very obvious when you walk into a place and someone's unhappy in what they're doing. I'm sure we've all probably experienced it at some point in time in our lives. You mentioned about bringing the community together, and we're coming up towards the end of our podcast episode, unfortunately. But I did want to ask you about something that you did in your community, and completely probably nothing really to do with pharmacy, or maybe it is to do with pharmacy, but you actually lobbied for a community car park and a playground upgrade. And I really wanted to chat to you about this, because I think what we could learn from you is, like, how do you bring the community together for a shared vision or purpose and create that change?
Yeah, I think what we've noticed is, just like our travel health business, you start to look at what everyone's, problem is, or what they're trying to solve. And then once you work that out, that's where you go. So for us, we kept on hearing daily people going, there's no parking here, or we don't have Opal cards, and, we can't get to the butcher or the pharmacy. We waited so long, and we just kept on seeing that double parking, the whole lot. And we know that people have been trying to write to the councils and there's been no response at all, or just very little response. And so we thought, okay, if they're all doing it individually, why don't we work as a group? And because everyone has a shared problem, it's so much easier to get everyone together, because it's just like a team. If you have a shared vision, it's easy to mobilize everyone and motivate everyone. So we found that across the businesses, they had the same problem because they couldn't get customers in, and they had the same complaint and spent hours talking about it. So we thought, let's just get together. So we created this petition and we sent it out to all the businesses on the strip, and they were happy to participate. And then because it's trying to solve their problem and the community is trying to solve that problem, we just unified and kept on going. And we got the car park 3 years later, but we didn't just get an upgrade on the car park. They upgraded the park across the road. So there was no public toilets at all. Now we have that and more parking. It doesn't solve everything, but it's a great space, and we haven't heard much complaining as we ever did before. So people are pretty happy.
That's so good. And I also think too, like, that just shows that you're invested in the local community as well, right? So really, it's not like you set out to do this to bring in business or something. It's that there's a problem that needs to be solved, and I think that's what pharmacists are, problem solvers. And but also from, I guess, a business perspective, it's also showing the local community that you actually care about and the problems that they have as well.
Yes, I think building that community is important, because that's when people come. Pharmacy is very unique, where we see people without booking appointments and we get to connect with them. We know them not just from their health conditions, we know them as a whole person. We know their life and what their concerns are, and we can really help develop that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess my last question for you is, what's next for Susan? What's happening? You talked about you're planning on, I guess, reviewing your staff and seeing where their strengths are. But do you have any upcoming projects or initiatives that you're excited about? You probably do. You probably have many.
This year I'm going to really try and focus on the ADHD support pharmacist side, and really, because it's been sort of a 12-month project where I've just planned a lot of it, but I'm starting to roll out the consultations where I really help patients and parents and anyone who has concerns about the medications and really optimize that. That's where I'm focused on the consultation. So getting that out in the community, and I've already seen a need for it, and really is just being able to help the ADHD community to know that, pharmacist is part of the healthcare solution, and then also collaborate with all the other healthcare professionals as well, that we are, the missing gap as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's so important, that especially for any medication that sits in the safe. But yeah, we're not just the gatekeepers to your script. I think that's really important. I know, like, earlier on in my career, I used to get quite frustrated, not really understand why, people with ADHD or autism or neurodivergent, they were always kind of coming in early for their scripts, or not knowing when their next repeat was due, or losing their scripts. And I just thought, what on earth is going on here? Why can't these people manage this? And then now I realize, that's why they're on the medication in the first place.
That's right.
And now I feel so bad because I get it. I feel so bad when people come in like a day or two early and I'm so sorry, like, you're a day early or 2 days early. And they're like, oh my gosh, I have to come back again. So it's just giving me a different insight. And one little tip I guess I'll share that sometimes I do is when I'm going through the S8s to see if there's any scripts that are going out of date, if there's any for any of the stimulants, and I think, they've got a couple of repeats left and they're due to pick up, but they haven't picked up yet and it's going to go out of date. So just give them a quick call to say, hey, do you realize your script's about to go out of date? Do you want to pick this one up? And I actually did that the other day in a pharmacy I was working at, and the mum said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, I just completely forgot about it. And I said, I just noticed it was going out of date, because if I didn't do that, she would have come in expecting the next one, and there's none, scripts out of date, none left, and now the kids are going to go without medication. So I think just being a little bit more understanding of what's going on in that context. So I know I've certainly changed the way I approach. But I can't do it for everyone, and that's the thing. Sometimes it's busy.
No, those little things matter, and I think you would have changed the whole trajectory of her whole, week or day, or goodness knows, because getting those appointments with the pediatrician is not easy.
No, oh my gosh. Yeah, pediatrician or psychiatrist, once they're not seeing a pediatrician anymore, it's certainly really difficult to get in.
Yes. No, thanks for doing that.
Thank you so much for joining the show for me. I can't believe we've been chatting for over half an hour now.
Oh, God.
So that means it is time to wrap up. But do you have any final thoughts or comments that you'd like to share, or any advice you'd like to share to our listeners?
Yeah, I just think if you're in pharmacy, and not just for a business owner, but just really know what you're passionate about and what your strengths are, because you can really drive a great service that way. And when you're passionate about, say, for us, it's travel health and ADHD health, if you can really feel a great need for it in the area, then go for it. And so just look at what you're serving, what the problems are, and how you can become, the solution and be part of the solution to benefit, so your patients can really benefit and improve their health that way.
Oh, what a great way to end the podcast. Well, thank you so much, Susan. I really appreciate you joining us on the show today. If anyone's interested in contacting Susan about what she's been doing with the Travel Healthy business or the ADHD support business, we'll have the links in the show notes. But yes, Susan, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I had a great time. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to Your Pharmacy Career Podcast, proudly sponsored by the Pharmaceutical Society of Australia. The PSA is committed to empowering pharmacists through advocacy, innovation, and industry-leading professional development. To become a member or learn more about how the PSA can support your career, visit www.psa.org.au. Don't forget to subscribe, share this podcast with your colleagues, and join us next time as we continue to explore your pharmacy career journey.